Hello, Kelly. Let's begin with your review. So the first shot that you have is full of color, and it's really exciting to look at and vibrant. The only thing I could suggest when I look at the picture one-to-one, which is sort of full screen, it's a little bit shaky. So there's a touch of camera shake, and that's probably because you photographed it in shadow. And this is quite normal. All I would suggest is just be careful about your shutter speed. I don't have the metadata on this picture, so I'm not sure what your shutter speed was when you took the photo, but just a little bit of camera shake. Otherwise, if you increase your ISO and make your shutter speed a little bit faster, then you will have a tack sharp picture. Okay? Now, otherwise, with regards to composition, my first inclination might have been to get rid of this area down here, but upon further inspection, I really like this figure here. So I would say that I'm not really inclined to change your composition at all. And if I did, it would simply be to get rid of this door. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Now, with this sort of crop in, we are removing certain visual elements that may or may not really add to the storyline. So let me show you what I mean. Let's back this up a bit. Now, the clothes that are here have a little bit of defocus blur because the aperture that you chose was probably a little bit lower than normal. So this area down here has focus sharpness, but this area doesn't. And because we know that there's a doorway, we can see a bit of the ground and a little bit of the ceiling. I feel it's unnecessary. So if we crop that out, then what's going to happen is the viewer is going to spend more time in the sharper areas. Now, I did say that there's a little bit of camera shake, but I'm not talking about that type of sharpness. I'm talking about focus sharpness. And I feel that this is a bit of a tighter crop. Also, not all software allows for selective brush work, but this area up here is a little bit, which we call it a bit hot, a little bit bright. So what you could do is simply go to your highlights, reduce them, and just paint on a reduction of the highlights. Now, this really works well for raw photos. It doesn't work so well for JPEGs. So obviously you gave me a JPEG, so it's a little bit muddy when you reduce the highlights. Let me show you what I'm talking about. We could go all the way up and all the way down. Now, if you do shoot in RAW ever, this is a gem of an alteration, because you can radically reduce any area of a picture that is what we call blown out. I'm just going to ignore this because it's a JPEG and it's not going to look very pretty. However, it's not a deal breaker. I think it looks fine. It's just for people like me who are nitpicky. So I'll get rid of that. And yeah, otherwise I think you have a fun picture. Really good job. Okay, so your next shots, I'm going to pull up the pictures here. We have 3 different pictures, and I'll just put them full screen here. And is this Halifax? No, Nova Scotia? It looks to be. It could be wrong. Okay, so you have 3 different types of color tones, and you're probably wondering which one is better. And whenever you have an overcast day, it's always tricky to decide, do you want to warm up the picture? Should you keep it cool? Should you warm it up slightly? And depending on your white balance in your camera, you're probably going to end up between this shot, which is more of a neutral picture, and this shot, which would be somewhat like a white balance that uses cloudy. Now, this white balance, my guess, is shade, and that's the little icon that looks like a house. So whenever I have a situation like this, I don't really do any of them, because there's no color to begin with. So I just simply make it a black and white, because I don't like the yellowish look, and I would tend actually to more appreciate bluishness, to be honest. So if we went out to our color area, I would tempted to either add blue to make it a cooler tone, more dramatic, like this, and also reduce exposure. So let's go to light and reduce exposure. And what that gives us is a late evening, a very late evening feel, or a super early morning feel. Whenever you reduce exposure and you add blue, that's the effect that you get. So I feel that the bluishness looks better. However, it's still not excellent, and what I would probably do is just make this a black and white. So let's take a look at some black and white here. And that might be a bit of a better option. And you can choose the black and white mixer. This is Adobe Lightroom CC, but most editing software allows channel mixers. However, if you just want a really quick solution, you can use presets or filters for black and white. For example, maybe for this shot I would like a high contrast filter so I can really blow out the sky and just have a real crunchy look to my picture. So let's just say that we go with black and white for this one. Okay, and the only thing I'd suggest is this little area here is just a little bit, I'm not going to say annoying, but we can just get rid of it by cropping or simply clone stamp it out. Okay, so I feel that this might be a better option for you. Again, there's so many different ways to create black and whites. This is a super high contrast look, but of course you can just reduce the saturation if you want to get a similar effect. Okay, so let's go to your last picture. Now I definitely know where this is. This is Lunenburg, one of my favorite places in the world in Nova Scotia. And I've sat on this very bench many times, and I was really happy to see this picture. So the first thing is I really love this wooden boat. I don't love this sign. So what I would do is I would take a look at my picture. In fact, I do this all the time. I scan it and I say, is there anything here that is not serving the picture? If something visual is not helping tell a story or serving the picture, then I just get rid of it. And I'm never afraid of cropping. Cropping is your friend. And a lot of people will say, well, don't crop because you're losing resolution. I would suggest if an element detracts from the overall picture, then crop it out. It's far better to do that. Okay, so let's crop that and see what we have. So that's a bit of a cleaner picture. The people are fairly well placed. They're sort of in the middle there, which looks good. Now it's true that by cropping that post out, we did go a little bit tight. There should be a little bit more breathing room probably between the bow of this sailboat and the edge. However, I'd prefer to have this sort of tight crop rather than have that post in the shot. Okay, next thing is it's never a good idea to crop out just a part of a person's foot. So we have the heel cropped out here of both people. So I would simply just move the crop up a little bit. And let's see what that looks like. And that might be a bit better. See, I feel it's a little bit cleaner. We could even potentially go more. Something like this. And while we're at it, now I think that the right side looks good. Okay. Excellent. Now, finally, excuse me, one good thing to do is always just make sure that you have a good straightness on your water. And I feel that the water is straight. So good work on that. It could be just the slightest amount off. I'm just going to do a slight rotation here, counterclockwise. Excuse me. And a counterclockwise of just the slightest amount, I believe, is going to give us a perfect straightness. Okay, so I really like that composition. I think your colors are fine. This would also work as a black and white. It's just a really nice, relaxed look. And yeah, I think you did a great job on this. I might even punch up the colors even slightly more. by going to vibrance. I wouldn't use saturation, I would use vibrance. But not too much or it might look fake. Okay, so I hope that you got a lot out of that review, Kelly. Thank you for sending in your photos, and I really enjoyed going through your images.